Hello, welcome back to Xtras. I'm your host, Andrew Sherman. It's a Dallas Famous auxiliary podcast. This week, we have Danny Gallagher, who's a talented writer, humorist, and journalist, and he's here to talk about his show, The Mocky Horror Picture Show. Danny has contributed to an impressive array of publications, including Cracked and Dallas Observer. He also has the unique distinction of having written an episode for the cult classic series Mystery Science Theater 3000, which is a dream gig for any writer. In addition to his comedy writing, Danny co-founded the Mocky Horror Picture Show, which is an interactive comedy troupe specializing in live, riff-filled screenings of cult movies. This show is perfect for fans of irreverent comedy and offbeat cinema. Coming up on December 29th, the Mocky Horror Picture Show takes the stage at the historic Texas Theater to rip on the holiday cult classic Jack Frost. Make sure to grab your tickets and check this show out. So here we have Danny Gallagher. I hope you enjoy it. Hello, we are back again with Dallas Famous Xtras. This week we've got Danny Gallagher, and he's waving at you, which you can see. And he is a comedic writer, actor. He's a regular kind of writer, right? And we're going to talk about him a little bit because he, to me, is Dallas Famous, but also he's got a show coming up that he wants to promote with the Mocky Horror Picture Show. That's right? Okay. Cool. Let's start with, you're not from Dallas, right?
No, I'm from New Orleans.
Oh, okay. So how did you make your way to Dallas?
I didn't plan on college. Is the short version. No, I grew up in New Orleans, born and raised. I was almost contemplating wearing my Saints hat, but then I thought, no, don't be a good guest.
Why would that matter? I'm not a cowboy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I
didn't grow up here, so
even if I was from Dallas, I don't think I'd like the Cowboys. Anyway, no, I grew up in New Orleans, and then after high school, kind of did college I was going to go to college, but I kind of just planned on it last minute. And my parents, my dad was relocating to Tyler, Texas for a job. And so I thought I'll go up there with them and maybe work for a little bit and then go to college. And then turns out Tyler actually has a really great junior college, Tyler Junior College, with a really great journalism program, which is what I knew I was going to do because that's all I did. And I secretly wanted to do comedy, but I was in New Orleans in the 90s at an all-boys Catholic high school. So comedy was not even, the drama club was maybe the closest I could get, and the best we could do was Neil Simon.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's funny-ish.
I like Neil Simon.
No, I mean, he had his time and place.
I mean, but it was like, I wanted to do, I was obsessed with comedy as long as I could remember. A big TV kid. I call myself a member of the Nick at Night generation.
Totally.
Because they were the last generation to watch reruns and watch modern TV, and that's really what I wanted to do. But journalism seemed like, well, you're good at writing, and you need a career that allows you some creativity. And writing was always my strong suit. So
I think it's interesting, not to interrupt, that you. That you were always a writer, and then you weren't like really planning your college out specifically, just because I
don't remember what part of it was my dad moved to Tyler a year early. So my senior year, he lived up in Texas and would go back home when on weekends as they were like preparing to move, like finding a house and all that stuff. And there was some planning, but it just kind of became like, well, let's try Texas.
Right.
Like, I love New Orleans. It's where I'll always be from, and I love going back. But I was like, well, let me try to change the scenery. And then nobody prepared me for Tyler. I didn't know what a dry county was.
Oh.
Which really bummed me out, because you turn 18 and you move to a dry county. It's like
completely dry?
Not completely dry. Like you can... It may have changed since then. You could get beer and wine at restaurants and stuff, but you couldn't buy... You'd have to go to another county to buy liquor, and you'd have to go... I remember we had a friend we threw a bachelor party for, and we specifically had to go to Kilgore just so we could get something stronger than beer.
Weird, because
I know, right?
I didn't grow up in Texas.
It's super conservative.
It just seems like it's like drinking is everything here, and I guess like that makes sense. There's like a backlash to it,
right?
Too. Yeah.
But the school was really good. They let me do some like funny stuff with the journalism department. I had a humor column, and I started working online. The first comedy job I ever had was for a website called the Center for the Easily Amused. which was like a top ranked, like you'd go to yahoo.com/humor and it would be like the top link. And it was mainly like writing internet humor. Like it was Kathy Walker that ran it. She gave me my first ever paying job. And it was like writing jokes and, Mad Libs type stuff. Like whatever I wanted to do, she'd let me do.
Huh.
And then, so I did really well in the journalism program. And then I got into UT Austin, which was another culture shock. Because, I mean, growing up in New Orleans, you would think you'd know what a party city is. And, Austin was like, Austin's not as, New Orleans is, to me, is still the biggest party city in the world. But Austin was just like another, another like community, another culture to explore.
Yeah.
And I did
partying.
Yes. And so I did that for 2 years. And
is that where you got into more comedy, like in the theatrical?
So I was a theater kid in junior high and high school. But junior high, my drama teacher let me do like Who's Line style shows in my 8th grade year. I bugged her for a year straight, and finally she was just like, "Okay, Danny, just do it." And then we started doing it, and it was actually like a fun way to learn how to act and write and do theater. And then I went to a all boys Catholic high school, and that killed all that.
Yeah. But
then Austin is when I really kind of started to be like, okay, now I gotta, see if I can do it.
Yeah, I mean, they have an amazing improv scene in Austin that I'm aware of. I don't know about the stand-up so much.
I started with trying to get into comedy sports, which kind of makes me cringe now.
Yeah, I mean, did you ever do comedy sports? I don't
No,
I've
not
dissed
anymore.
them pretty bad on the show, but I've never actually gone, but I used to do improv too, and I never did that.
We're on the same page.
Yeah,
it's a good way. So the best way I've heard it described was Lewis Black, who's a playwright. So I learned that in college, that he wrote plays. He's talking to a group of theater students, and somebody brings up improv, and he's like, "To me, it's pretty much like mime." but then he goes, "It's a great way to learn how to write and to learn how to act, but I can't watch it."
Right.
And I don't mean to be too cynical about
but
it.
that's
what I took out of it was like, okay, do it and learn what you can from it.
Yeah. Okay.
And you can blaze your own trail. Although for the longest time, I had this mindset of like, well, if I quit, I'm not going to be able to do this. Not going to be able to do comedy at all.
Huh.
And there was kind of a push moment where I kind of had to drop out and just pursue my own thing. And there were some other. It wasn't for me. A lot of it was, and I don't mean this as an excuse, but I was really. It took me a long time to get a handle on my depression and anxiety and like how it interacts with like social stuff. And for the longest time, I was on the wrong medicine.
Oh,
I had a doctor who kept pushing this medicine on me that clearly wasn't working. But it was kind of made clear to me that like, well, no, you have to. It's the medicine's working. You're not. Huh. I was like,
what?
I was like, this is what I'm paying you $300 an hour for.
Wow.
And I mean, it worked out. I got the right got into treatment and found out learned a lot about that it's okay to like yourself and all that stuff. And that's when I started to kind of like blaze my own trail and do my own thing.
Yeah.
And
was that when you were going through that? Were you doing improv too?
Yes.
And
I thought like the improv was like the treatment.
Yeah.
Which for some people it is. It helps you get out of your shell and get out of your comfort zone and get out of your head. But I was always in my head.
Right.
I remember one show. Oh God. I won't say what. Well, I'll say where it was. I was at the Comedy Arena, and it was a late night show. I don't even remember what the format was. And I was just having the worst day. Just everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. And we're in the locker room getting ready, and I'm putting my phone up. And I put my phone on the locker, and it drops, and it falls screen first. And I hear it crack. And everybody just stops and look at me. And I remember one of the head guys looks at me, and I'm trying to not lose it, but I can tell by the look on his face that I'm not doing a good job. He's like, "Are you sure you want to go?" Yeah, I'll go out. And I walked out, and we did the intro, and I walked outside again, and I shouldn't have come.
Oh,
but
no.
at that point, I'm in the show.
Yeah.
So what can I do?
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And it was like it's just like it happens in the movies. It's like I'm sure something 10 times worse than my phone breaking happened, but it was just like, it's just that one thing. And that's what turned me into Joker, was I broke my phone, was I broke my screen phone.
Were you
I
like,
broke the screen on
were
my
you like
phone.
an asshole on stage? Or
I
like,
just wasn't I wasn't present.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember what I did that night, but it just was like, I don't think I'd killed the show because everybody on stage was way better at it than me, and like could carry, whatever. Sure. But it was kind of made clear, like, it was awkward that night, because it was like, it's just such a funny moment to me now.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I felt like the best improv I would watch would be people that were in groups or teams that had done it a long time together.
That's part of it too.
So I never really got to that point. I mean, and when I was in Austin doing it, and it was like when I first started doing it, I was right out of high school and in college, and I mean, I don't know how funny I was or wasn't, but I thought I was great. And then when I stopped and came back, I was too self-conscious to do it at all.
Yeah.
And I wasn't doing comedy sports. I was just, like, what was I doing? It was the Institution was the theater in Austin that's not there now.
I was there in the 2000s.
Yeah. This was
2000, 2001. So
this is after that.
Oh, okay.
Way after that. So Cold Town, you know those guys?
Yeah, I know Cold Town.
Yeah.
Haven't been, but I know.
They're New Orleans guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, and so you're in Austin and you left comedy sports. Then what did you do after that?
So I never got into comedy sports in Austin.
I see. Okay.
They were going to audition, and then 9/11 happened. Oh. And life just kind of shut down.
Sure.
And they never re-auditioned again. So I had a show at the campus station that was fun.
Like a radio show?
Yeah.
Okay.
Student radio. We called it the News Rants, and it was basically just us reading weird stories on the news and just riffing on them. And I tried doing stand-up, and I developed 5 minutes, and I hope nobody has that tape, because when you start out, you emulate who you know, and I'd just gotten into Bill Hicks. When you go to Austin, it's kind of like you cross the border and they give you all of his CDs.
Right.
And I was like, oh, you can do this with and I loved in college, I'm very angry, as most students are, so that's what a lot of my focus was on. And
yeah.
And a lot of it was going dark for the sake of going dark, which can be funny, but you got to be really lucky. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I forget who it was. A comedian told me, basically years later, it was like, every comedian starts out, you think you have to be the Antichrist, and then you realize, no, you have to be funny first.
Yeah. So
it was a good way to learn. Like, okay, maybe you get a cheap laugh, but you don't develop anything out of it. But it gave me a chance to write and learn how to do stuff. And then I graduated college and realized I had to get a job, and I was studying journalism, so I went into newspapers and thought, okay, well, maybe I can. I love humor columnists. I've read Dave Barry, even Irma Bombeck, who is like a homemaker, but she's very witty and very like reachable.
Theme song Unstoppable by Salim Nuralla. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, follow, all the good stuff, and share it with your friends. We'll see you next time.
Because newspapers are in such a weird place. Even back then, it was like they're still catching up to the internet.
Right.
But every newspaper I worked at, they let me write a column. So I kept doing that. And then worked my way I started in Henderson, Texas, at it must have been 1,000 people in that town. But it was a great place to learn how to write. Newspaper writing is a great way to learn how to write, because you got to be concise, but you can also be colorful, and and I was a very wordy writer when I started out, so they taught me how to get to the point and how to edit. And then I made my way basically back to Dallas. I started in McKinney. I was a crime reporter in McKinney for 8-9 years.
Oh, wild.
Yeah. And while I was writing there, I was writing like humor columns on the side, like through an email list, and a theater in Columbus called Shadowbox read one of my. I did a movie humor column because I love Mystery Science Theater, and I loved like The Critic and The Simpsons and stuff that like made fun of, like, I loved movie parodies. I'm a big magazine guy, so like movie parody stuff was, and I'm a movie buff, so it was all in my wheelhouse. So I wrote this column about movies we watch at Christmas. And a theater in Columbus called Shadowbox read it, and they're like, "Hey, we want to turn this into a monologue. We'll pay you like a couple $100 or whatever it was." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And I couldn't fly out to see it, but they sent me a DVD, and then I just kept bugging them. I was like, "Hey, I got this other column I think could be great for this," and then I got this other one, and then finally, Jimmy Mack, who's their head writer, gave me a shot at writing sketches, which I'd never done. In fact, the first sketch I wrote was a parody of Taxi Cab Confessions, but it was a student driver, and it ended really weird with, like, this kid doesn't want to talk about his deep secrets, so the student driver parks the car on a train track and is like, "You're gonna tell me something now." It was really it was like a very ambitious first try, but it was just not gonna work. I just remember that being like, again, because I didn't know I'd never written sketches.
Yeah.
And so I started writing for them, and that was another step in my comedy education, if you want to call it, and wrote some the best stuff some of my favorite stuff came out of there. In fact, I just started up with them again, writing sketches. And then that was my first break. And my second break came, I made friends with a guy at a newspaper conference who knew an editor they were relaunching Cracked. Cracked had, there was Cracked magazine, and then that folded, and then somebody tried to buy it and make it into a humor magazine, and it didn't really work. It was like a one-issue thing. And then I don't know what company it was, but a web company picked it up and basically re-evolved it into crack.com. And I was on like one of the first, I was just like, they were just doing like funny lists, and got to work with Jay Pinkerton, who wrote Portal 2, the video game Portal 2, and a bunch of Valve games. And he's one of the funniest people ever. And it just blew up. Like, it just became like the website everybody went to. Huh. And
that's cool.
It was like total like Hollywood story. Humor.
Well, plus, was this like early internet days? Because it is hard to get paid as a comedy writer on a website at this point. This
was 2008, I think, so 2009. So the internet, so Facebook wasn't a thing yet. Google really wasn't a thing. I don't remember what my starting pay was, but it was like a second job, kind of aside, like a second part-time job. And it just, I can't explain it. It just exploded.
Yeah.
Like, everybody visited it, everybody shared, whatever the metrics. I don't know marketing or PR or, how to like promote, I don't know what the metrics are, but like whatever it was, like everything just clicked and it just became this big thing. And I started getting offers like I remember True TV had a blog. I got to write for them. Spike TV wanted me to write for they wanted to turn their website into like a second kind of media portal. So I did. It was a lot of very like bro-y stuff, but very tongue in cheek.
Right.
And yeah, just, started getting offers one after the other to write humor. And then I kept working at the paper. I probably worked there about 8-9 years. And then I got laid off, and I'm like, oh, what am I going to do now? And then I'm writing on the side. I'm like, I'll just do this. Like, this is what's fun to me, and it pays.
Yeah.
And it hasn't always been steady, but that's just, I've been freelance ever since.
That's cool.
Through good and bad.
And then you started writing for like just more papers. Eventually you come on the Observer. Was there any other local Dallas stuff that you were writing on?
No, I was doing improv. I basically met someone who knew somebody at the Observer, and I pitched him a piece actually about a comedy troupe at the Dallas Comedy House, and then just kept pitching him, and pretty soon it was like, my main freelance job. I think it was 2010 when I started. Wow. 2011, something like that.
You're with them for a while.
Yeah, at least 10 years.
And then this whole time you're still doing comedy too?
I just started. So I had a freelance job for about a year where it was like I worked from like 2 to 10 every Monday through Friday. And there would be like a week. I wouldn't leave my house for a week. So when the job ended, I was like, I need to get out. And I'd been writing, comedy as part of my freelance career for forever. And, started getting the itch to like perform again.
Right.
And I hadn't done any performing since college, since like 10 years. And so I just looked up a comedy club, which ended up being the Dallas Comedy House. Mm-hmm. And I went to go, I just hung out for one night and then signed up for class and didn't realize that there was a difference between short form and long form improv. Oh, yeah. I just thought it was all one thing.
Sure.
And Dallas Comedy House is very big, was big into like UCB style long form. So I just started taking classes and, meeting people and trying to, get something going. And
yeah, I actually got to take a class with Del Close in Chicago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. That was funny. I walked in there's a painting of Del. I'm like, what's...
Oh, yeah, that's right. They had one at the home place.
Yeah, it was wild. And okay. Yeah, the Mystery Science Theater thing, I mean, I'm a big fan of that. Actually, I saw like a live performance of that in Austin in like 2007, like the people that were part of that. But anyway, all right, so like...
Oh, do you mean Master Pancake?
Yes.
Yes. That was, that's a big thing. So in college, they were originally called Mr. Sinus Theater.
Oh.
And I think there was some...
They're ripping it off, though?
Yeah. Okay. So, like, Mystery Science Theater just ended on the Sci-Fi Channel. And one thing I should have added in college, I was there when the first Alamo Drafthouse was on College Street. It was just this one room, one theater place on a second floor. And I just went every chance I could go see a movie, I would go and get to see, like, amazing stuff that I never, like I saw Spinal Tap for the first time. It was something I should have discovered in high school, but it just never crossed my paths. And then the first time I ever saw it was at the Alamo Drafthouse. And then so right after Mr. Science ended, they started doing Mr. Sinus Theater, which was like a live version. Mm-hmm. And I just worshiped those guys. Mm-hmm. Like I was like, this is what I want to do, because it just looked like so much fun. And I don't want to say I was a stalker. But I know I annoyed the piss. I would invite them on my radio show, and they were always nice. I mean, I don't mean that in a weird way, but I'd like every time they had a new show, I would be there first night, and to me it was like studying. It was like, this is what I want to do. Like I want to do this. And but it always seemed like, well, how do you get around the movie? The buying of the movie, like I didn't understand any of that. Right. And then by then I was like, by the time it like really took off, I had to leave and go, start a career.
Right. Right.
So yeah. So you were saying?
Oh, I wasn't. I just saw it. I mean.
Oh, okay.
But it makes me think like I can see the roots of Mocky Horror. If you're that much of a fan of it, because me and my wife just started rewatching all the Mystery Science Theater again.
Yeah,
actually, I missed some of the newer ones. So,
thanks.
Yeah, it's cool that
I meant that sarcastically because I wrote one of the newer ones.
Wait, you did?
Oh, you didn't know this?
No.
Oh, crap!
I literally.
I thought you were leading up to that.
No, this is a theme also of the podcast that I have guests on that I didn't.
We can
figure.
We can circle around. I'm sorry. I thought I told you that.
Funny.
I'm very like. I hate bringing it. I hate saying that I hate bringing it up.
Well, first of all,
because I like bringing it up, but
right.
I always feel like I'm pitching myself.
I brought it up first of all, in a way, but second of all, which one were you like? Which cast?
It was the last season they did online. So they did a big Kickstarter in, I want to say 2019, 2020, and it became like the biggest Kickstarter of all time because it was totally out of the blue. It's like, we want to bring the show back.
Yeah,
Joel Hodgson wants to bring the show back, which
right.
nobody ever thought would happen.
Yeah.
And they raised like $8 million, and then Netflix picked them up for 2 seasons, and they Jonah Ray is was the new Joel, and really funny seasons, and then Netflix cancels them because Netflix sucks. And so again they were like, well, let's just launch our own channel, which became the Gizmoplex is what they call it. And so they did another Kickstarter, which raised, I think, even more money than the first one.
Wow.
And then I kind of wormed my way on through. It was total happenstance. It was Joel was touring, I think, for the second time, and there was talk that Netflix was going to cancel them, or he was the one that told me, said that they might not pick us up, and I was like so bummed out. And I did an interview with him for The Observer, and I mentioned that I had this Mocky Horror Show, which I know we're kind of skipping ahead, but
yeah, it's fine.
So I got to go see him live, and it was great. And then 3 or 4 months later, out of the blue, he follows me on Twitter. And I'm freaking out. I'm like, Joel Hodgson's like one of my heroes. Like, what do I do? What do I do? And I remember talking to like friends I know who are in show business. Like, what do I do? And they're like, just message. Like, just message him. Just say hi. Like, there's no big mystery. There's no big like secret way to unlock. So I message him and say, hey, thanks for following me. And he's like, oh, I followed you because you wrote for Jackbox Games, and they helped. He was basically trying to find somebody, I think, from Jackbox who was part of the Kickstarter launch, and so I introduced them. And then they announced, I think a few months after that they were going to go their own way and launch their own web channel and just do shows themselves. And I'm like working up the nerve to be like, hey, can you hire me as a writer? And I framed it as like, I messaged, first of all, he responded, which was like right away, like almost immediately he responded, which was just blew my mind. Wild, and it wasn't like, hey kid, get lost. It was like, he was super nice. And so I emailed him and said like, hey, I'm sure you got a bunch of writers already, but if you need one, it'd be an honor to write. And he messages me back right away and says, actually, I've got a lot of great writers, but I'll see what I can do. And didn't get my hopes up, kind of was like, okay, you try it if you try. And then a month later, I get a call saying, hey, we need you to write in, I think, August. Are you available? And I like, yes, I'll clear the whole week. And that was like 2 months away. And then about a week or a couple of days later, they call me back to say, hey, can you work a month earlier? Somebody dropped out and we need someone to write this episode. And I'm like, yeah, sure. What's the episode? And they're like, well, we're doing a Halloween episode. Which I'm like, if they laid out every episode and they're like, pick one, that's the one I'd pick.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because they've never done like holiday themed anything. Like they may have done like a sketch, like a Christmas sketch and like an episode that was around Christmas, but they've never done one where the whole episode was surrounded by Halloween. So, and they're like, can you do it a month earlier? And I was like, I'll quit my job if you need me to do it now. Like, I'm like, yeah. So I cleared out, it was 2 weeks and it was all online. It was right after, I think it was in 2021. So it was right when the pandemic was kind of winding down. So everybody was working online anyway. And it was all on Zoom. And it was just the greatest. I mean, it was nerve-wracking at first because, like, I'd pitch a joke and I'm like, it's got to land. It's don't pitch it if it's not going to land. Right. And sometimes I'd pitch a joke and go, well, but you don't have to do that. But and apparently I did it so much that Jonah had an impression of me. Here's Danny. Oh, here's a joke, but you don't have to do it if you don't want to.
That's funny.
And it was 2 weeks, and just got to work with. It was for a movie called The Mask 3D. It was the first 3D movie. Oh wow! They did too. So it was scored twice, and it was so much. I mean, it was a lot of work. It was more writing. It was very, very writing intensive, but it was a lot of fun. Got to work with like Jonah Ray and Paul from Paul and Storm, and really great writer who I admire, Matt Oswald. He's he's the brother of Patton Oswalt, but he just finished a web series called Puddin' with Eddie Pepitone, and it was like the first like YouTube comic strip. And it's literally just it's in an office break room, and Matt's in it, and every episode he's just sitting there eating a cup of pudding, and just crazy stuff would just happen all around. Like there'd be an audition for a movie, and Eddie Pepitone would start breaking, like, and he got like Robin Williams involved and Dana Gould and like all these huge people.
Oh wow!
If it's online, look it up. It's hilarious. Yeah, and then basically had to wait a year for it to come out at Halloween, and I didn't think and my friend Liz, who I was trying to get on the show with me, Liz Barksdale's my writing partner, who I founded Mocky Horror with.
Okay.
I was trying to get us both on, and there wasn't room, and I really felt bad because like I love Mystery Science Theater. She loves it more than anybody I know besides me, and so it was kind of like a bummer that I couldn't get both of us on. But she understood like it's writing's your career, and I was really torn up about it, but it worked out.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so many opportunities.
Yeah.
So,
but she threw me a watch party, and I didn't think about, is my name going to be in the credits? Like it didn't hit me until the episode ended and goes, is your name going to be in the credits? I'm like, oh crap. and it popped up, and I just like started just crying because it was like such a like, it was one of those like I never thought it would happen kind of moments. I never thought like the show would come back and that I would even get a chance to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's like
I can't believe I didn't tell you that.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you waited. Sometimes people tell me stories before the interview.
Right.
They don't come out as good. What, like, real quick, let's just wrap up your history a little bit. Who else significant have you written for since then, or just highlights, I guess?
I mean, Mystery Science is definitely the biggest.
I'm seeing if I have stuff. Onion AV Club.
Wrote for the Onion AV Club for a while. Okay. That was fun.
Mental Floss
was fun. What's something that's really big? I mean, the Mocky Horror is probably the thing I'm most proud of because it's something we created, Liz and I.
Right.
Liz, who I met doing improv, we were both like Mystery Science fans, and we always like would pitch whatever club we were at to do like a movie riffing show.
So when was the first time someone said, "Yeah, do it"?
We did it as an improv game, but we wanted to do it with movies. And one of the things I have a problem with improv with is that the audience control, especially short form, is the audience controls it so much. Which to me kind of defeats the purpose of having an audience.
It's so hilarious. You're a writer, so of course you feel that way.
And I did improv because I thought like, well, we'll do the writing games. We'll do the games where you got to think of jokes on the fly. No, they all want to do scenes, or the ones that really bugged me were like where you do a scene and it's really good, but the joke is you got to do it again, but you got to do it faster, or you got to do something that completely destroys the scene until it's chaos, and that's the joke. I hated
the games in long form personally. I wanted to get past them to do the scenes.
And I'm a games guy. Like I was like, that kind of showed me like games and comedy can work, but not if the audience controls it, because then it's just like somebody described it as like being like a clown, and I didn't grasp it at the time, but after I went through it, I was like, oh yeah, you're basically at the whims of the audience.
Yeah, I can see that now. Huh, interesting.
And anyway, I didn't mean to get off on a
no, that's
there,
fine. But we're asking, like you're saying, so you first started this Mocky Horror improv.
So Liz and I were always wanting to do it and always talking about how we do it, and then I kind of just found myself with no shows to do, and I was like, let's just go do it. Like, let's just try and see if it's fun. Like, both of us know we've watched, every episode. We've watched riff tracks. I think we're pretty familiar with the format. We can fail our way to figuring out how it works. And it was literally just me and her fiance, Kevin Bean, would go to each other's house and watch a bad movie and just try to make jokes. And we do it to the point where we were making each other laugh. And the first one we did, we also started the bar high. We started with Jaws 4, The Revenge, which for those of you who don't know is the dumbest of the Jaws movies by far.
Yeah, that's saying something.
The movie tries to bring back the wife from the first one. And even though the shark blew up, the shark comes back and gets its revenge by eating off her children. The shark eats one of her children, and then she moves to the Bahamas to get away from the shark, and the shark somehow figures out where she is and starts attacking her. It's dumb on so many levels.
I can't even. Yeah.
It's and it was so, but it was perfect to start because like it's so like bad. Everything about it's just bad, poorly done, and so we would just keep making jokes, and then we started at. We're like, okay, let's try to start writing a show. How do we do it? And then. At the time, I don't remember how. I think I was doing some stuff with Pocket Sandwich Theater back when they were on the Mockingbird location, and I heard they were looking for late night shows, and I was like, "Hey, we have this movie riffing, and nobody's doing movie riffing as far as we can tell in town. Like, you know, we'll do a show." And so we started with public domain movies. We actually started with Plan 9 from Outer Space, which. It's a good, like, for a first show, it's good. It's well written, but I don't, if I had to do it again, I don't know if I would have picked that movie, because the more I watched it, the more I was like, this is actually a really good movie. I mean, yes, it's, like, there's continuity problems, and every cop has a gun, and they're always, like, scratching their heads with the gun. Like, they're always, like, doing everything you're not supposed to do with the gun. And,
that's hilarious.
But it's like, but you can tell like his passion is in this. Like, it's just, you can't help but like it.
Right.
And I'm not saying I wouldn't do it again, but it was harder to riff than I thought.
Sure.
And so we spent a year and basically wrote it.
You took a year for the first one.
A little less than a year, probably about 8 months.
Okay.
It took a while because we went from just joking around to being like, okay, how do we write a script? How do we construct? Well, first we got to get a transcript of the movie, and then
interesting. So
we kind of had to develop our own formula for writing. For writing it, because we didn't want to improv. A lot of people were like, "Just go improvise it." And I'm like, "I don't want. I want to write. That's why I want to do this."
Right, and also that's pretty dangerous. But
yeah.
But interesting, because you're such a fan of the show, but you had to still learn how to do it.
There's like little things you don't think about.
Yeah. Until
you start doing them. So it's like, a lot of jokes. Like, movies aren't just walls of text. There's parts where it's like, you know, a scene with no dialogue, and you have to write a joke to a certain point in the scene, which is the setup for the joke. So we had to learn like how to write, not just dialogue, but learn how to write descriptions of scenes, so we could know like, okay, when this person does this, do this joke. And we had to learn the hard way that you can't really talk over anybody. You have to, like, as soon as someone starts talking, the joke has to end before it. Otherwise, the audience, it kind of weakens. Unless the joke's really good, it kind of weakens the joke and the movie. And it was all like, because like I remember we would do jokes in the first one that it would go on long. We'd talk over two people, and it's fun. It reads funny, but the audience kind of doesn't know what to pay attention to.
Right. Interesting. Well, now how long does it take you to do one?
We can do one in, I'd say 3 months, 2-3 months.
Okay, so you have a format kind of done.
Yeah. By the time we were done at Pocket, well, which was the when the pandemic started, because we had, at that point, we had, I think, 4 movies done, 4 full-length movies, and we had a year lined up, and then the pandemic hit and just shut everything down.
So you do them like once a quarter, sort of?
Yeah, like once every 4 months or so.
Okay. We
got it down to we could do a show in 4 months. Turns out the hardest part is actually transcribing it, because a lot of movies, if they're not like big cult movies, there's transcripts, but they're not like, you have to go in and write the non-dialogue scenes, because it's like you can get a transcript for pretty much any movie, but it's taken from DVDs, the captions of DVDs.
Oh, okay. What about ChatGPT? That entering in now?
What's that?
ChatGPT, is that helping you any yet?
No, I'm
just for transcripts, not for writing.
I've used AI to tweak our logo, but that's about the extent of it.
Okay.
I've done it a couple of times. I was like, give me names for a movie riffing troupe, and it's the most dad joke names I've ever. It was like movie hijinks. It was literally like one of like that.
That's funny. Well, good. I'm glad it wasn't funnier than you guys.
If anything, I use ChatGPT to be like find out what the wrong answer is, and then I can come up with something better. That's the extent of about that I've used it for.
Gotcha. Okay, so your movie coming up on the 29th of December at the Texas Theater is Jack Frost?
Yes. The Texas Theater, we started. They're the first professional movie theater that gave us a shot, so we could do bigger movies. Because up until then, everything we did was public domain. Because getting a movie, getting the clearance to do a movie without just blatantly stealing it is like a minefield.
Right. And so
and was our biggest obstacle.
So they're a theater, so they already have that lined up?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they get the movies for us, and then...
How long have you been doing it with them?
I say 2002.
Okay.
Because we had to take a couple years off because of the pandemic.
2022, you mean?
2022, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I do that all the time. What day?
2020, yeah, 2020, ended 2022. Because we did a 4K cut of Reefer Madness that they got us on a Labor Day weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And it sold really well, and we just kept doing shows. And,
yeah. Seems like a good fit, actually.
Yeah. And the Alamo Drafthouse gave us a shot, which is where we have... So the movie we're doing on the 29th is Jack Frost with Michael Keaton. We originally did it at the Drafthouse. And we brought it back. We had to take an extended break. Mm-hmm. We still do shows on Twitch every Wednesday too. We just do live. We just watch a movie and just talk over it.
Oh,
have fun with it.
Oh, so it's not as much of the comedy, but it is probably still funny because
it's comedy. I mean, it's very hit or miss. I wouldn't do it I wouldn't ask people to pay us to do it on Twitch.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because it's very much just us talking over it.
You just love it that much that this is
you
enjoy. Okay.
And it's fun, and it's a way to keep to exercise that muscle that know.
Is it still the three of you? Is there more people in it now?
Yeah, it's me. So we started with Liz and I and Kevin Bean co-founded it, and then we moved. Brian Hickey replaced Kevin, and then the person we have now is Albie Robles.
Okay,
he's the one. After Brian, it was a long period of people that it was hard to find somebody.
Mm-hmm. It's a specific skill set.
It's a specific skill set, and it's fun. I won't mention who it is, but we brought in someone we knew from improv, who is probably about 10 years younger than us. Uh-huh. And we're and they're a great writer, and we're sit in with us. And we showed them a movie. At the time we were trying to do Attack of the Giant Leeches. And they watched the whole movie in silence. He couldn't make he just was he didn't understand how a movie like that could get made. He just was I don't know how do you make a joke about that? He couldn't even grasp that this was a professional movie.
Yeah.
And so it took a long time to find
I could see that.
Someone who wanted to do the work and understood the work, and Albie's been great about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Albie's a voice actor, so he's a natural performer, and
cool.
Yeah. I took the long way to say it, but
yeah. Is there anything else that you want to talk about, the event or?
Yeah, the movie. So Jack Frost with Michael Keaton on the 29th at the Texas Theater, 7 p.m. So it's right between Christmas and New Year's.
Okay.
It's a Sunday. It's it's one of our best scripts.
Okay.
Even we did an intro for it. I finally got to do a song. I've been wanting to do a song for the longest time. I'm not a musician, but I've recently started getting into musicals and starting to think about what if I wrote this, did this as a song or whatever. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with the movie at all?
No.
It's about a guy named Jack Frost he's a musician who's never home for his family, and the one night he decides to come back for Christmas, he's killed in a car accident.
Okay.
And that's not the funny part. He comes back to life the following Christmas as a snowman, and it's the most horrifying. What? Apparently, the Jim Henson's workshop was involved, but they don't like to talk about it because it's supposed to be a heartwarming family comedy, but this thing looks horrific.
A heartwarming family comedy with the dad being dead, seems
yeah. I mean, that doesn't help it, but then
it gets worse.
But then he just magically shows up as a snowman.
Yeah,
and the MacGuffin that brings him back to life is even more unbelievably dumb.
Wow.
And we don't like to rip into movies too much because there's a point where the audience is like, okay, we get it. You don't like the movie. Like, we get that it's bad, but like, which is another thing we learned. Like there's better ways of being funny that's more surprising.
Sure.
But we have a lot of fun with it. Awesome. And we have a snowball fight in the theater.
Oh, wow.
In the middle of the movie, there's a big snowball fight with the snowman,
right?
Because he's a snowman, so he must know how to really throw snowballs. It doesn't make sense. So we give the audience a little foam snowball so they can have a snowball fight in the theater. And
nice.
Yeah.
I like it, especially in Dallas where we won't have that opportunity.
Yeah. We tried to figure out how to do it with real snow, and we're like, I don't want to clean that up.
No, that's messy. Anyway, Danny, thanks for coming down here. Finally got to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you.
We're looking forward to the Mocky Horror Picture Show on the 29th at Texas Theater with Jack Frost.
Yes, thanks.
And we'll have the links in the show as well, in the notes. And
and if you come, you're eligible to win something. We have a prize.
Okay.
We give the audience a bag of props to use during the movie, like a Rocky Horror screening. That's the name. And we're putting a prize in one of the bags. So
nice.
There's your incentive to comedy, and you may actually get a Christmas bonus if you didn't get one.
Yeah, and it's something fun to do and interactive, and so check it out.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Danny.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank my guest, Danny Gallagher. Please go check out his show, Mocky Horror Picture Show, the 29th at Texas Theater. I'd like to thank everyone for a great season at Dallas Famous. We are definitely going to keep doing this. I've got some fun guests coming up next season already. If you know anybody that wants to do it, please send us an email, and we hope you have a great holiday. Get your own Dallas Famous podcast t-shirt. The link is now available in the show notes. Thank you again to the Deep Ellum Community Center for letting us record there. Theme song, Unstoppable by Salim Nuralla. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, follow, all the good stuff, and share it with your friends. We'll see you next time.